to everyone. I'm Ada from Poison Rock, and it's my pleasure to have with us really like an historical band, Project 86. And we have today Andrew, let's say the founder, basically, the historical member. I mean, your band first of all, how are you? It's the most common question.
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I mean, Project 96, it's been out there for how many? Almost 30 years by now?
Gosh, getting close. Yeah, I think we're on
Wow.
year 28, which means I started when I was like 8 years old, right?
Oh my
I'm
God.
just kidding. I'm just
Oh my
kidding.
God. I mean, I'm 30 something, let's say, because women's age doesn't say a lot on the internet.
Right, right.
I'm from the 80s, let's say like that. So basically,
Okay,
when you started, I was like 9, 6, 10, something like that.
okay.
So,
Yeah,
but I remember anyway hearing and listening something from your band back then on MTV, I guess, something like that. Back at the
right.
beginning, because your first album came out like in 96, Project 86. And
98,
98,
98. Yeah,
then I was 11. Yeah, I remember
yeah.
again. And I don't want, I mean, if we go really to talk about every album, because you had a lot as well of a member of the band that, changed formation, which is normal growing up. You had
Right.
a lot as well of documentaries. That's, I mean, how does it feel for being a member of a band to see yourself like put in there in more than one documentaries? It's freaking cool. I mean,
Yeah, there have been so many milestones along the way that I had never imagined
they're amazing.
or even set as a goal. I think
Yeah,
in the beginning, the goal was just to play a couple of shows and to record some music, you know?
that's the pose that you
And
imagine all this success that was turning out just selling thousands of copy of CDs, and which back then were CDs.
right, right.
Yeah.
Which
So
some folks can't even remember now, those
yeah,
days.
unfortunately. But let's say that, I mean, it was, of course, it was not like now that we open and just click a button on Bandcamp or Spotify, whatever, and then we have it. And it's easier, kind of,
Right.
and tougher as well. But let's say that, I mean, having the number that you had with all the band back then, I mean, it's huge. And as well with all the important name that you toured with. I mean, even Linkin Park, which is a milestone.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And the
I
funny
mean,
thing about touring with them, which was so long ago,
yeah.
they had joined a tour that had already started as the
Yeah.
opening act when their first album dropped. So I don't even think their album was out yet, but they had a single at radio, which was how they got the tour.
Yeah.
And I remember the first day they jumped on that tour, they were playing before my band, so
Yeah,
opening
of
for
course.
us.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember when their tour bus showed up and one of their members got off the bus and it was someone that I went to school with. It was a friend. So
Really?
I said, hey, his name was Dave. And I said, hey, what are you doing here? He said, I play bass for this band. And I said, no way. That's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
That's,
and then they ended up really going from unknown to
yeah,
big by the end of the tour. And then
so
within a
fast.
couple of years, they had sold 10 million records
Yeah,
and
yeah,
crazy.
the Ike's band, the name is written on the wall of history forever and ever and ever.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
Exactly.
but as well, like, I mean, I don't, as well, Project 96, because I was a teenager and I
Sure.
remember, going on school I mean, of course, here, let's say in Italy, there are teenager listen different things, maybe more Italian music, commercial music, dance, pop, that's what we listen to. But of course, if you're an outsider, like most of us, the black sheep,
Right.
um, there were always, especially for people that was like in the rock and the punk scene, there was always some song in the CDs playing, playlist CDs or tape about
Right.
Project 96. And that was cool because, it was, when I was offered this interview, I was like, are you really kidding? I mean, I remember this name. And for a moment, I was like, wait, this is the name. And I took it because I still have that CD compilation. It was, like
Yeah.
magazine compilation. They made it like, I don't know, Metal Hammer, Rock Hard,
Right.
this CD compilation. And there were like
Yeah.
Rancid, blah, 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 and the project. And I looked and I was like, fuck, that's the band, that's the CD that I destroyed. So
Yeah.
it's like the same things happened with Danko Jones. When I interviewed them, I was like, fuck, these bands I basically grew up with. So for me,
Right.
it's an honor to be here today speaking with you, Andrew. And that's why, especially because you are, let's say, since the beginning. So that was I wanted to ask you, like, don't make like all story of the band and all story of the album, because we are interested in the present, in here and now,
Sure.
always. But of course, like, how does it feel to be, today? I mean, with your eyes of today, thinking about the past, when you really started, how you see yourself, like, how many things have changed, like, in general. How do you feel about it, especially with these album releases of the last year?
Well, first of all, I feel it's a great question. I feel very thankful because my career and the career of the band, the trajectory of the band has been a very winding road. We
Yeah.
haven't taken a lot of orthodox steps along the way. I've experienced a lot of things and some success early on in the career that probably, if a few other things lined up differently, would have been a lot more success, but it didn't pan out that way. It didn't work out that way, and that's okay. And I think ever since that time, there's been a soul searching, sonically speaking, creatively speaking, that's
Yeah.
occurred really over the period of almost like 2 decades, which
Wow.
I don't even know if you can imagine that, but
Yeah, I guess.
record
Yeah.
after record, sort of looking back on it, being like, that material comes out and you're
Yeah.
happy with it, but there's always this lingering sense that you wanted to try something else. And
Yeah.
for me, the something else was always, I wanted to do something that was heavier, a little bit more
Yeah.
extreme, a little bit darker. I've always been kind of a sci-fi nerd a little bit, so
Yeah.
exploring a little bit of that more lyrically.
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of boxes I wanted to check along the way that I never was able to.
To do it.
Finally came time to lean into this album cycle,
Is
and I
it
sat
too far?
down and really was honest with myself and said, what is it that I want? Well, I want to do these things that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I don't want to worry about what's been done in the past, because the past is the past. And I want
Exactly.
to I want to completely reinvent this thing that
Exactly.
I've done for so long, purely first and foremost from a creative standpoint, like just feeling like
Yeah.
I want to do something different, and that's what's happened on Omni, which I'm so thankful for.
But as well, because as a human being, I mean, you grew up, you were a teenager, you're a man,
Right.
you have your life, you experience life. And after you wrote about, I think, in your album, a lot about experience and personal experiences. You wrote a lot about that. I mean, we are still to be, for example, sitting here today, writing again about just, I already wrote about it. Now it was time for you to do whatever you mean, to do what you wanted. But as well, musically wise, sound wise,
Right.
from that
Right.
point of view, because the band already has, like you said, it has a different turning point,
Right.
but it is kind of well known, it's kind of well established, and that allows you to say, okay, this, I want to move in a different direction. But you know that you will always have your fan following you, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's one thing that's been unique throughout the history of what I've done, is that there's this inner circle of people that it's a cult following, and really a cult following.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
most artists don't have that. And that's why I think I've been able to continue to make music
No,
and do things on my own terms.
exactly.
And I'm really, really, really stoked at this moment in time. The last couple of years, I've experienced making music and doing this thing truly in a brand new way, and
Yeah,
feeling more free than I've ever felt
but do
because
you
of that
think,
support,
yeah, so
because
you
of the
think
support.
that this change about yourself, like feeling more like I do whatever I want in the music field, it was due to kind of turning point in your, like, in your personal life, or I don't know, something that, I just, you wake up, said, dude, I just want to do my things.
I
Yeah.
think I think it was a combination of factors. You know, you mature, you learn
Yeah.
lessons. You know, every time you make
We go
something,
through lockdowns.
you are a student of your own craft, right? And
Yeah.
I finally just got to a point where I don't know if the term is fed up, but just so ready to do something else
Yeah.
that I
Oh, yeah, I
announced,
have to.
okay, I'm project's done. Project 86 is done. And what I realized is in the process, I announced a couple of years ago, this is going to be the last Project 86
Yeah,
album.
I remember
And
that. Yeah. And it's even
and
written on the Wikipedia.
right.
This is the last. Just cancel, please.
And what I realized recently is that Omni, double album, parts 1 and 2,
Yeah.
is not the last Project 86 album. The last Project 86 album was the album that we made prior to this. The 10th album was called Sheep Among Wolves.
Yeah.
This is something new. So what I've been kind of leaking out is this is a reinvention. It's not a complete different thing, but it is a
Exactly.
complete like rebirth type of
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. It's like,
And,
yeah.
and so I want to rebrand, and it already has been done organically through Omni. The whole thing moving forward is basically going to be called P86 Omni. And what I've been telling people is it's all set in this world, this omniverse that
Okay.
it's kind of like a future world, not so far in the future, set around the year 2041. It's all
Yeah.
thematic and narrative based, and a little
Yeah.
bit more sci-fi, a little bit more cyberpunk,
And of course,
and
but
a lot more metal.
yeah, but of course, but and I mean, because of course, when you write about sci-fi, there is always been influences that are not only it could be the writers, so like we have books. I don't know, could be as well TV shows, movies. You, as personal, let's say, as Andrew, what influenced you to be led in this world of sci-fi? And
It's a
mainly what
great
inspired you to writing that? Because I like sci-fi too. Depends what type of sci-fi which we're looking for. But I can understand because if you are writing a song and you're imagining something, you should have some influences from, I don't know, some of your idol, right? Or whatever you have.
It's a good question, and the way I would explain that is it's been kind of a journey. So it wasn't like I woke up, a couple of years ago
Yeah.
and said, I'm going to watch some sci-fi and get some inspiration. It's more,
Yeah, of course.
this has been something that I have been exploring since I was a kid. And so
Yeah.
the amount of influences and the amount of, I have
Oh,
like a library of books, of films, of you
yeah.
know shows, of all kinds of things along the way that have really been sort of brewing inside of me and building upon itself with a desire to sort of create something in a universe that is still tapping into the cross section of a few genres, again, cyberpunk or sci-fi or horror. Even, I'm not a huge horror fan,
But
but like the idea that a scary world is emerging due to mankind's relationship with technology is the
exactly.
thing that I'm interested in. So to answer your question, I guess it started for me when the band started. I started reading a lot of the classic books that I
Yeah.
read in school, whether those are the obvious ones that everybody's read, like 1984 and Brave New World and Fahrenheit 451 and
Yeah.
We and all of these books. And
Yeah.
that sort of launched me into some more, I guess, obscure titles. The source material for Blade Runner, written by Philip K. Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Ray Bradbury's other works, I Sing the Body Electric, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as films that people would know, I'm a huge Blade Runner
Cool.
fan. Both films, I love. Ex Machina. These are very popular,
Yeah.
films that I would say most of popular culture that knows the term cyberpunk would be
Yeah.
familiar with. But I try to absorb
What?
anything I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
So I'm always exploring, media on the streaming platforms
Yeah.
or films that have come out over the last 30 years and beyond.
Yeah, because it's full. I mean, especially
There's a lot.
to the AI, we have a lot of going on in the world about that. A lot of
Right.
sci-fi and especially like post-apocalyptic movie are going out since the last one was released by Netflix, I think. That one, I don't remember the name of this movie. That say there is going on a lot about, because of that's kind of a reality. It's not so much sci-fi and post-apocalyptic. It's something that we are almost, I mean, we already are living that and we are preparing for living that.
Sort of.
I mean, who would imagine that, like 30 years ago, even 100 years ago, book has been written, movies been directed about what we're experiencing today.
About
Even,
what we're doing right now, talking on a screen to one another
yeah,
across the world.
completely. It's a
Yeah.
flat, and there are like thousands of kilometers. I mean, oceans between
Yeah.
your screen and my screen. And in meantime, I'm like in your house, you're like in mine. So that's the weirdest things ever, that people that, I don't know, my grandfather, when he was a kid, he couldn't ever imagine.
Right.
Of course. And so let's say that, of course, it's like not a stupid question, but of course, like with this AI, let's say coming really fast, especially spreading
Right.
so fast. What do you think about that, especially even in music, in video clips? Because of course you did video clips, like like the 90s, the 2000 video clips, the artworks of the CDs were different. Now it's a lot of bands are using this video from AI generated or
Right.
image generated. So you that let's say that you see both this phase. What do you think about that? I mean, you think that's kind of interesting, see what AI could bring, or maybe that you miss sometimes, you think, I think that it's always better doing, so for example, a music video shoot by yourself,
Sure.
with a video director.
Yeah. Great questions again. This is essentially what the Omni album is about, and the Omni world is about, is exploring our relationship with artificial intelligence ultimately, and where is that leading us. Do I think there are some great things that have come about as a result of like advances in technology as it relates to being an artist? For sure. I was always the guy throughout my career that had this really lofty visual concept that could not be executed because I didn't have $1 million at my disposal. Now, all of a sudden, literally in the last couple of years, we've reached a stage where you don't need $1 million to execute any idea. You can bring it to life with little or no money using artificial intelligence tools
Just typing.
and a few programs, right? Whether it's Unreal Engine or Adobe products or whatever.
Yeah.
And our latest music videos are evidence of this. We have a ton of artificially intelligent, generated content in these music videos. I feel this tremendous conflict of interest whenever I participate in this, because I know that there's an end game with all of this. And my theory, my thought process is we will reach a stage of human history where we're confronted with a choice. Either we can merge with artificial intelligence or we can be left behind. And that's where I see the world is going. And
so like if for example, if we're at this point, so let's say these two choices, we move on. So for example, people go to the left and people go to the right.
Right.
You think that will be like a world, instead of being, for example, rich people and poor people, let's say, there will be people following, these AI progress, and people go back.
Right. I see it going in that direction. And the majority of people will choose to embrace what the stream of consciousness of most people are doing, which is embracing technology.
Yeah, that's what we did until now.
Yeah. And I think there's always a huge trade-off with emerging technologies. What we get up front is usually increased efficiency and convenience. The payment for it is usually not quantifiable until after the fact.
Sure.
And
that's true.
The payment usually doesn't equal the convenience. In other words, the payment's usually higher. So let's look at social media. You know, we
Yeah.
still are not really able to quantify what social media has done to our society.
Oh.
We can see echoes of it. We can see small little tidbits
Yeah.
of evidence that it has lowered our collective serenity. We are less satisfied with who we are as human beings. Our
Yeah.
mental health, the aggregate mental health of
Yes,
society, has gone
because we
downhill.
always have to compare ourselves to the person we see in the, I don't know, in the next feed, next post.
Right. So,
Because
and the
yeah,
irony is with that, you know, let's talk imagery and Instagram, right? And self-image. What you're seeing more and more and more, you know, on image-based platforms are artificially
yeah,
intelligent personas.
yes,
So
exactly. And
you're
then as
getting
well,
the perfect
filters.
looking
Yeah,
girl or the perfect
yeah,
guy or whatever, and they're not real. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
And
And
that's
they're
creating
generating tons
damage
of content.
to
Yeah.
all the youngest people. And because I never experienced, as a woman, never experienced in my life to see I don't know, 20 years old girl or even 17 going to take fillers. I was like, what the fuck? When I was 18 years old, that word filler was like, oh look, you know, associated with share, for example,
Right.
something done because you, I don't know, when you were old, really old, not when you were a
Right.
kid, but and that's not only for women, because that has been as well something that is spreading through men. All these be going through gym to take the supplement like that. It's all of because you wanted to be like that person, and maybe that person or that image you're seeing is just is without, it's just not real, or at least
Right.
not 100% real. That's something that's creating really a lot of damages as well in mental health. It's creating this dysmorphia to people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Totally. Dysmorphia. I think that's a great
yeah,
word. And we're just going to see that continue
yeah.
because, man, I was reading an article the other day that sort of typified it. It was an article in a financial magazine. I think it was Forbes or something like that.
Mm.
And it was talking about how emerging generations of men are all embracing relationships with AI women and how the birth rate is going to plummet or is
Okay.
plummeting because guys, young men, boys even are building relationships with these perfect AI companions
Yeah,
who
that's
look perfect and only
yeah,
say the things that you want them to say back to
yeah.
you, and they're
I mean, I think
reflecting
that would
yourself
be
back to you, you
this
know?
would. I think that is the same things for women too. But can you imagine? It's like there is a movie like reminds me the movie of Hair of with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, that is one of my biggest influences, that
Yeah, I
film.
love that movie.
Yeah,
And that's remind me of that movie, for example, or Simone, the movie that made Al Pacino, creating this woman
right.
wasn't real. So we are seeing something that, or like always, has been already thought, created, and now
Yeah.
applied to the world.
And Her is a great example. That
Yeah.
film came out, I think, 10 years ago. And I
Oh,
remember watching it and thinking, you know, this is not
yeah.
very different than the world that we're living, but it's still,
No.
there's still a disconnect insofar as I remember when I watched Her for the first time, the image that always pops up in my head is the idea of people walking around and not talking to one another, and they're
Yeah.
on their phones. They've got their little Bluetooth headset and they're just on their
Exactly.
phones, and they don't even greet each other. They don't look at each other. They're not. And I remember we were not quite there yet as a society when I watched that, and I was like, this is where we're going for sure. And now
No,
you go to the somewhere, you go
well,
to
just the first coffee shop.
any, yeah, a pub, and everybody's just
Yeah.
glued to their phones.
Once
And
there was the pool gaming, now there is not anymore.
no, yeah, and it's just people glued to their phones. I think of this whenever I'm in the airport. I look around, and I don't know why, but that's like my favorite people watching is always in the airport. So I just sit
Yeah.
down and I watch, and you notice it because it's like 95% of the people are glued to their phones and not
Yeah.
talking to them.
And if they
And it
can't
is
talk
Her.
to you, it's because they need a charger. Can you add
Right.
a charger for the phone? That's the only thing that told me at the airport. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Once you used to have a conversation like, where is the gate? Where is the arrival? Which your
Right.
flight? Which is your flight? Or just, having conversation. And that's sad because, like in a pub or in a bar, whatever, or even in the airport, it's always a good chance to make real and actual connection
Sure.
with people.
Yeah.
Not only, but because now all the connection, most of the time, and I'm sure that many especially the new generation, is all connection started like this, talking like in an app or
Right.
Facebook or Instagram, the friends in common, out, hello, how are you? Let's go out for a coffee. It's supposed to be the opposite. I meet you in
Right.
the bar. Can I have your number? Do you have, I don't know, Facebook? Do you have Messenger, whatever, MySpace, back then? Back then.
MySpace. Yeah.
I miss MySpace. It was funnier. It was cool. So that's
MySpace was so imperfect. It was
yeah.
so like ghetto, and and it was kind of the Wild West in the sense that
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of rules. You could kind of do a lot of different things on there.
Even make your own HTML,
Yeah,
customize page,
exactly.
put your own
Exactly.
top 10. So for the first was your favorite band and your friends later. Second, your boyfriend. That was
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
everything was public. But that's the settings that everything disappeared kind of. So I don't know where everything went. That's one thing of the, for example, of the web, that once one social media get off, you don't know where your information goes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all the
True.
photos, all the infos, all the password you put, they disappeared. Like there was the blog of a Messenger, like live Messenger live spaces. That was something that a lot of people, or blogger, all these blog spots, they kind of disappeared.
I remember. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So yeah.
You think about MySpace. I remember having this sinking feeling when I saw MySpace happening, and it happened fast.
Yeah.
And I remember going, "Ooh, this is going to change everything."
And it's gonna end fast too.
And I don't know if people realize how much this is going to change everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
I have to embrace it.
Yeah.
I have to embrace it because it's where the world is going. But
yeah,
man, this is going to be bad. I remember saying that out loud on my laptop, in my house, on MySpace. I'm like, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad.
The same thing that I said with Facebook went up, and I said, what is that? What's that? But actually, it's lasting more than MySpace. That's for sure. Because MySpace ended forever. Facebook is a sort of decay, but it's still there. Kind of.
Yeah.
For all people like me, I use it. I prefer it. It's
right.
More cozy. But let's getting back a little bit to Omni. So basically, with this post-apocalyptic and sci-fi vision of Omni, because in the 12th of January, it was released of 2024, the second part of Omni. So how do you feel it? I mean, it's a kind of the second part, or we can expect a third part?
Good question. So let's talk Omni Part 2 first and foremost. So we released Part 1 in 2023.
Yeah.
And it was written to be a little bit more cinematic in scope. Okay. So it's a little more of an evolution. Okay. It's not quite, I mean, there are definitely songs that are punchy and that are, we have some singles on there, but it moves like a film score more than it does just, banger, 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 right?
Sure.
So the pace is a little slower on it. And what I wanted to do with Omni Part 1 was just give you chills as many times as possible. Like Hans Zimmer or some great,
cinematic vibes.
Yeah, exactly. And Omni Part 2 is meant to be the opposite of that. It is more action. More action, just straightforward bangers. There's no like interludes or anything like that. It's
like
just punching you in the face. Or attempting to, at least. So I like that contrast. I'm like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's like I'm listening. If I have to listen Omni Part 1 and Omni like Part 2 in a row.
Yeah, so it's a lot of music. It's 23
Yeah,
songs. So we were thinking, how can we sort of take it in a different
yeah.
direction than we did on Omni Part 1? Some of that was unintentional
Okay.
because there were songs on Part 2 that ended up on Part 2 that were written for Part 1,
Part one.
and I didn't feel like fit the tone because I
Yeah.
wanted a specific tone throughout. So where we ended up with Part 2, people seem to even like it more because it's more immediate.
Yeah.
It's as much as Part 1's heavy, this
Yeah.
Part 2 is even heavier, I think, which is
Yeah.
really cool. And it definitely sets a new precedent sonically for what I want to do moving forward. I really didn't imagine
This is
continuing
good.
this.
But it's
But
going great.
yeah, the response has been so strong, and the way that I feel
Yeah.
is better than I've ever felt by
That's,
far in
that's
doing this
yeah.
for a living. So the way I feel right now, I wake up every morning and I'm like, please let this continue.
Yeah, it's going because of course there's gonna be like we want to there is a crescendo, so we want to continuing.
Yeah. So, I haven't officially announced Omni
Okay.
Part 3, but I see it as inevitable
It's
and
kind of something that could happen, yeah.
soon.
That's amazing. I mean, that's amazing.
Because
In
I have this
2025,
momentum right now. So when
maybe
you get the
2025.
momentum, you have to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
faithful to that momentum and keep it going.
Of course, of course. And I mean, did you have as well planned some kind of touring promotional for Omni Part 2?
So, project right now, as much as I enjoy playing live,
Okay, yeah.
we play sporadically live.
Okay,
We haven't done a ton of touring in recent
okay.
history, but we're always open to
To to
playing.
to play.
So our last show was Furnace Fest last fall, which was great.
Yeah.
And the next show is
Okay.
our album release live stream and
Live
show
stream.
that's coming up March 1st and 2nd. We're actually doing two
So
nights.
March 1st and 2nd, people will be able to see you as well on streaming.
Yeah, and that show is
Super.
almost sold out for the
Okay.
in-person. We've got literally like 10 tickets left to the show.
That's
That
amazing.
as soon as I
So
announce
so
it's
let's
almost
say that people, if you want to see you, they have the chance to do it with the live streaming, at least for the
yeah,
moment.
with the live stream. Yeah, and they can just visit us at project86.com,
Yeah.
visit our store, and they can get a ticket there.
But that's what I wanted to ask as well. So basically, people can now, like you mentioned before, can now grab, I mean, visit the official website and grab their own copy in vinyl as well, which is perfect. All type of merchandise and this ticket, which is important because of course the album they can get it on the website, but for the live streaming they can get the ticket on the website. So if I want
Right.
to just I go on project86.com, take my ticket, and the show will be streamed there.
Yeah, we'll be streaming it on YouTube. So
YouTube, okay.
basically, they'll buy the ticket, and then we'll send them the information on where to stream it.
That's important. That the information will arrive on the email you will use to send them. Okay,
exactly.
These are always to be clarified because sometimes people don't understand, and maybe they ask even they write even under the interview what I'm supposed to do, and I'm like I don't know. So let's clarify that. So what can I say, Alex? It was really a pleasure doing an interview with you, and it was really interesting about the topic we talked, and I hope to see an Omni Part 3 something. And I don't know.
Really good chance.
Yeah, and to do and having as well, why not? And another interview about the live streaming and talking about more what happening, because there is as well, don't forget Lexi as a good movie for relationship similar to her, only that Lexi is a comedy.
Okay.
Lexi.
Okay.
Take a look at that. It's a comedy about a man having a relationship with this kind of Alexa things, let's say.
Okay.
Take a look. So
Lexi, Lexi.
Lexi, yes, exactly.
Okay.
But in the next interview, we're gonna talk about that. And yeah, it was a real pleasure, and I wish you good morning, rest of the day.
Thank you, Ada. We'll do it again. I would love to do it again.
Yeah,
sounds amazing.
Have a good rest of the day. Bye,
Alex. You too. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.